Young people from all over the globe are joining up to fight for the future.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part too.
It really boils down to our ability to accept. We don't need pessimism.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Welcome to Straight Talk, a place where we dot the I's and cross the T's with your host, the Liquid Monkey. Accompanying me as always, my two trust recurring guests, Professor Redbill, a scholar who knows his ways around international intrigue, and Punish Gusano, a young man navigating the treacherous world of American college campuses. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you.
Thank you for having us again.
Thank you.
Joining us today is Adam from Liberty Rising. Adam Maxwell, chairman of the Liberty Rising Group, is an unwavering advocate for individual liberty and justice. He fights against tyranny through strategic litigation, education, and media, passionately championing the cause of freedom against oppressive forces while inspiring a global community dedicated to safeguarding human rights and dignity. And of course, there is a new guest here, Juan, known by us in Telegram by his consistent news posts on finance and politics, also on his updates on current situations. Gentlemen, we are very, very glad to have you here, and we wish for you to give us great information. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank
now,
you.
The first order
Thank
of
you
business
so much.
the first order of business that I was thinking about is that apparently Zelensky has the incumbent president of Ukraine, now in war with Russia, is suspending elections. Could this be true?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the elections were suspended during the summer. As you guys know, I wrote a post back in January that said that basically they would try to suspend the elections, and eventually this would lead to what we're dealing with right now, where the country's done. I mean, the guy at this point is almost like a dictator. He's refusing to leave power or allow new power to come in. And this is not uncommon in situations where countries are in a state of emergency, dealing with a global conflict, so to speak, or regional conflict, rather.
How this could happen? After all, I mean, wouldn't be a movement to depose him, or at least election to end? I find it hard to believe that nothing in the internal front of the Ukraine state may have been opposed to it. What did happen, especially when there are so many soldiers dying for nothing?
I mean, the thing is like during World War II, the United States, we were in a big state of war. There were elections then, and they went ahead and had them. They talked about possibly suspending them, but the leadership at the time was like, no, we might as well just do elections and continue to run the country as normal. I mean, there are certain laws at the state level that do allow the suspension of elections in the case of a state of emergency that are on the books. I'll post in the in the Telegram group. I think I did post in the Telegram group the memo basically stating those.
What is could we define Ukraine now as a catastrophic, as a demographic catastrophe? After all, having lost so many men, so many able-bodied men. Josh, or anybody who wish to answer?
Sure. Not only have hundreds of thousands of able-bodied Ukrainian men been killed, according to the best estimates, with hundreds of thousands more potentially wounded, missing limbs, missing legs, unable to fight. There's also the fact that millions, perhaps half the population, have left Ukraine. And these people most likely are never coming back. There are 5 to 7 million to Russia, 10 million to the European Union. Before the war, they were saying Ukraine had anywhere between 38 and 44 million million people. Now, to say there's 20 million left in Ukraine is optimistic. And these people, they've left, they're never coming back en masse. People go there and back, but I think they're now settled, resettled, and the situation in Ukraine, the poverty, the wealth, the prosperity is going to be damaged for decades to come. So it certainly is a demographic catastrophe.
Sure. If I can add something to what Adam just said, just in the last week, we had, for example, bombings in the city of, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Kupiansk. Um, just to say, there were what there's stated that there were 36 different bombings in the city for, if I'm not reading wrong, yeah, I'm not reading wrong, in less than two days. And if I'm not correct, I read something about these bombings that more than 16 civilians were wounded or if not dead. So we're talking about something that has escalated for more than a year. And wounded people, people that are immigrating out of Ukraine, out of Europe per se. So what Adam just said, and just to put it in a better point, or just to add more, yes, it is really, really unlikely to see all these people that are immigrating outside of the country, or they are losing faith of the country right now outside of the country, to come back. Especially when you know that you see forests or the yeah, call it the outer zone of the cities in Ukraine. They are becoming all turned up. Like the other day, I shared a picture about, like, you saw a picture of 1915, 1916, First World War, the Great War, and a picture of 6 months ago, 4 months ago in Ukraine, some part of Ukraine, and you see all the trees, all that gray, uh, that war vibe.
The
So
destruction, the same
yeah,
destruction.
the destruction, the proper destruction of war. So how you come to see all these people not to go out and ask yourself, would you come back when you know that there's all these reconstruction that has to be done? And just to add to Mr. Professor Red Pill, Ukraine. I was looking forward to bring a map of the losses in Ukraine, in terms of territory, in terms of soldiers, in terms of equipment, in terms of tanks and other stuff. Right now, it's a war that it's basically making no sense in terms of spending, and internationally, it's like the meme we saw a month ago of Zelensky all alone, and the politicians all around him. That's his situation. He's playing a proxy war, and he's just one puppet that could be easily replaced by any other guy. So if he dies or something happens, major powers in the world will not care. They will support the next one, just to not get Russia get in the way in Ukraine. The only thing that they don't want is Ukraine to get to the Mediterranean. Why? Because if Russia has access to the Mediterranean, has access to sea. And if Russia has access to sea, the big bear gets unleashed. What does that mean? They get access to exports they don't have. Try to export everywhere from the north part of Russia. It is impossible. It is impossible. Everything will get frozen. Simple as. Try to export anywhere else. Russia has no sea. As simple as that. Or if it has it, it is really hard or really expensive for it to move. So they need the Mediterranean. If they get access to the Mediterranean, Russia will become a power in 2 weeks, 2 months. Right now, I think it was Adam, the one who shared that, economically talking, Russia has overpassed the eurozone. I will just shut up, and if you want to add something to that.
Yeah,
I have a question. Before we okay, after Adam speaks, I would like to ask a question. Please, Adam, go ahead.
Russia does have access to the Mediterranean via the Black Sea. Even if you discount Crimea, with the region of Krasnodar, Sochi, Rostov on Don, there's access to the Black Sea. At the beginning of the conflict in 2022, Russia were able to capture Mariupol, capturing the port of the Sea of Azov, and they moved up to the regions, Kherson, notably, and consolidated, reinforced their de facto control, absolute control over Crimea. Through Crimea, there's the Black Sea, which goes through the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus to the Mediterranean. So Russia has access to the Mediterranean Sea. The problem is it's bottlenecked by Turkey. And then you've got the Baltics Sea, which gives you access to the Atlantic Ocean. Russia has access to that, but it goes through the Baltic Sea, which has major bottlenecks, particularly around Denmark and Norway.
A question to you all: How strong is Russia? How is this? I always have this image of a huge bear in the Black Forest lurking in the shadows. Of course, in the 90s, this was a caricature. But then, by the rise of Vladimir Putin, and of course, all around the 2000s, we saw this strength, this bolstering of the nation, of the Russian nation, with the Chechenian Guard and the Crimea and such. And then in the 2010s, we saw Vladimir Putin's strength on display when there was I don't know, I think it was Crimea around 2008, and then 2014 there was something else, and we saw him advancing. And this is my perception: is Russia a strong bear lurking in the shadows, ready to pounce, or not? Please, gentlemen.
Just quickly, 2008 was the war with Georgia, South Ossetia. 2014, after the Euromaidan coup in February 2014, Russia annexed Crimea without any blood or very little blood.
How strong, how menacing is Russia to the world, or at least to Europe and United States interests?
Well, we can talk about it in terms of international politics, and you can talk about that in terms of zero-sum games or otherwise, or collaboration. We can also talk about BRICS versus G7, NATO versus this perhaps a kind of axis of resistance. But I don't really think that's the right way to think about it. How strong is Russia? Well, let's take the conflict out of it. Russia is the largest country on the planet. They are also the most materially wealthy country on the planet. The United States has maybe $40 trillion, I think, of resources, primary resources in the ground. Russia has over 66 trillion, plus the acquisition, the annexation of these 4 new territories, Novorossiya. That's another at least 10 billion. There's a lot of resources in the Donetsk and in the Donbass region. So they have the highest amount of material wealth out of any country. They have 114 million people, and their language is spoken by almost 250 million people. They have very strong trade links with the rest of the world outside of the West. And if you look at their military, and you ask how strong is their military, and you look at the start of the special military operation, February 2022, and you look at the Russian military now, I think it's unequivocal that the Russian military has grown in strength. It's improved in tactics. It's countered everything that the West has thrown at them. It's grown. It's pioneered new defensive warfare, drone warfare, offensive warfare, and they've been able to kill the Ukrainians and militarily defeat the state of Ukraine on a level that no one in the West believed was possible. So how strong is Russia, devoid of this conflict question, which we can go in? Very strong. What Juan was saying is, go ahead.
The idea is this one. I mean, let's not only talk about the now, but as I understand, Russia has had a very staunch policy against feminism or cultural or the cultural wokeism that and the virtue signaling of the West, which means that women have remained women, and of course they never relinquish or abandon their duties of being women. Do they have babies? I mean, that is the birth rate in Russia higher than United States or the world?
I think before we talk about that, I'm not sure the statistics, but Russia, the Russian nation, is 1,000 years old. It's one of the richest cultures, one of the richest language. There's a lot of traditional value in that Russian nation and in Russia. So you talk about it's got these strong national foundations that aren't being subverted and destroyed via processes of cultural Marxism. And then they also have a more authoritarian state than we have in than you have in America, for example. And that authority has been since the revival of the modern Russian state. It's been reinforced with you know, Russian Orthodoxy at the church, and it's presenting a reasonable defense against these cultural influences. Although Russia, to be clear, has many problems, and I speak to quite a few Russians, and they do say that there are demographic concerns, both in terms of the number of Russians and the number of immigrants, and that's one of the biggest criticisms I hear on Telegram from Russians about the Putin government.
So, in short, I got a question to you all to make a case about this. What is the end game for Russia? At what moment, in which circumstances, Russia would say, "Ah, mission accomplished. Now I can just go back to my house, my home, and sit back and relax because everything that I wanted to do is done." When,
I
at
mean,
what circumstance do we get that?
the problem with Russia and war, it's we can go back to Sun Tzu, and I always go back to Sun Tzu when it comes to war. War, it's something that tires the state. In order to
Naturally.
fulfill war, you need resources, and resources tire up the people that get them. In ancient times, having people picking up the stones was hardcore, but right now, what's the outcome financially, economically of war? It's inflation, price rises, being closed up by the world. The thing is with Russia is that Russia has a lot of money and it has friends that can hook him up if he needs money. Not only Russia has a crazy amount of gold, so if he needs to liquidate, I'm not sure around the gold, around the amount of gold that Russia has, but in order to liquidate it, it's not enough to financially its army, of course, but that's not the point. They have right now something that it has to be mentioned. Russia is part of the BRICS alliance, and yes, the BRICS alliance is not a big threat to the world right
Yes.
now, but it is a threat because we're talking about the three main powers that we have in the three of the biggest powers that we have in the world. We have talking about India, we're talking about Russia, we're talking about China. Having this alliance, which is in the main point, it's a monetary alliance that it's looking forward to really threaten um, the stability of, call it, the West. We're talking about the United States specifically because they are, of course, they're trying to find out how to create their own coin or how to make it stable and how to make it the world currency. So when you look for to a country that is doing this type of stuff, is making these type of plans while they are making a war, while they are being blocked out by the countries around the world, I'll ask you this: do you think that Russia is really caring of how when to stop? What I see in Ukraine, in Russia, it's a game of pressure, and the pressure it's not being pushed towards Putin, and you can see it. He's doing multiple projects. If the war was a real something that is buzzing out his ear, telling him, "Hey man, I think I should put more attention here. I shouldn't be spending money here, creating all these alliances because the BRICS thing got 17 members, if I'm not wrong, 17, 16 members just in the last month and a half. There was this meeting where they had more members, more sub members. So we're talking about more money, more power, more geopolitical power, more influence around multiple sectors around the globe. So the battle in Ukraine is just one front of the current. A lot of people call it. It's not only a cold war, a cold war. It's a world war because we have more than one front that is in conflict, and we have multiple powers around the world that are moving, you know, their influence, their power, not only troops, but their influence all around the world. And one of the main players is Russia. So we have to take that into consideration when we say when is Russia going to stop? I don't think Russia is going to stop. What I think is that Ukraine may have to make a deal. And Biden, I think I saw a meme. I don't know who posted. I think it was around the chat. George, I'm talking about the chat, Professor Red Pill chat. I think it was this meme where Biden is holding this boxer down, and Zelensky's bleeding out down, and he's like, "Hey, yeah, we're tied, right?" And Zelensky is the only one who's bleeding. Zelensky is the only one who's tired, the only one who's down in the ground, the only one who's receiving multiple money out of the world. And if he doesn't receive all of this support, if it is stopped, if this constant cash coming in stops, I don't think it's going to be okay for Ukraine. And we have to take in consideration 2024. It's not going to be the golden year for economy and finance for the world. We have Germany in recession, the eurozone going into economical turbulences, just to call it like that. And United States is not looking in the best position. Let's see what the world will do. But in the next year, I don't see
Josh,
Ukraine receiving the same amount of money. I will leave it like that.
Josh mentioned. I'm sorry. Have you finished? Did you finish so
Yeah,
I
no,
can
I'm
just
I'm
finish?
totally finished.
Okay.
I would like someone else to
Okay.
continue on my point.
Josh mentioned the possibility of an escalation of armed conflict that could involve industrialized first world nations. We're talking about, especially now that Germany, as I've seen that Germany is entering into a recession. The locomotive, the steamroller of Europe is entering into a recession. Speaking about people who never felt the pinch of being poorer than yesterday, the psychological impact of doing everything right and not come out well. We're talking about a general. Not only that, the multiple minorities who have been artificially pumped in hate to Western people and Western ideals in Western nations. We're talking about minorities like Arabs and sub-Saharan Africans in France and Germany and other countries that were appeased by increasing amounts of money by the Western states. This, of course, could lead to massive unrest now that the money is not come through. And of course, we have to deal with native populations that are sick and fed up of the woke ideology of acceptance and liberalism that has brought them so much discomfort and pain in the form of violence from the minorities to these local populations. We're talking about France, Germany, Sweden, and how is this going to play out according to you, gentlemen? How do you think the 2024 and the 2025 is going to fare?
I think before we move on to 2024, 2025, it's important that I comment on how Juan is talking about this conflict. He's talking about it very abstract, a priori. Let's ground this. It's we can analyze, we can discuss, we can speculate, but it's not a game. It's not theoretical. This is war in Europe with a nuclear superpower facing what it perceives as an existential struggle. It you know there's tens of thousands of Russian men who have been killed, tens of thousands more who have been injured. This has been going on for years, this conflict. And that's not just the men that are injured, it's the men's family, their wives, their daughters, their mothers. It's the jobs, the demographics. This is to Russia truly an existential conflict. If you speak to Russians, you ask, what do they want? What will satiate the Russian nation, the Great Bear?
Exactly.
Every Russian I've spoken to wants the same thing. Peace.
What do they want?
Peace. They want peace. They want a just peace. And if you look at the behavior of the Russian state, you can see that everything they've done since the Minsk Accords, since 2014, has been towards a just peace. It's the West who have not just been provocateur, but a force of active malevolence, deceit, and pushing for this conflict, which they have engineered. They have engineered the conditions for this conflict.
So, according to the Russians that you speak of, in their mind, they are defending themselves.
They are defending themselves. Sure, we can talk about why, but they're defending themselves. I mean, if you look at there's a conflict, right? You've got the Russia on one hand, and you've got on the other hand Ukraine. No, they're a proxy. They're the spearhead that are being used against the Russia. Who's supporting Ukraine? It's the West specifically. You look at the signatories of the Minsk Accords. There was a phenomenal piece that came out in a German newspaper this past month, proving all of this. That the people pushing for this war is London, Washington, Paris, and Berlin. They have attacked Russia. They overthrew the legitimately elected government of Ukraine, Kiev, in 2014, and they've signed some peace deals, and they told Russia not to. They signed a peace deal in 2015 to get Russia not to attack. All the meanwhile, they've admitted. Merkel's admitted it. Macron's admitted it. Whoever is in the UK, that they had never had any intention of fulfilling this. It's all been a front, a deceit, in order to build up their forces and to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. Their goal is not to liberate Ukraine. They don't give a shit about Ukraine. They want.
They hate Russia.
They hate Russia.
They hate Russia. They hate the culture. It's hate. It's looking at them in the eyes and say, I want to destroy you for what you represent.
There's one thing that we're missing here, too, is that America has, since the Bush administration, has an agenda to eventually regain control of the Iranian oil and influence over the Iranian government. And who is Iranian's biggest trade partner and the geopolitical partner in the world?
I would say
my old friend.
Yeah, Russia,
Yes.
right?
I agree.
Right.
Guys, my old pal Vlad over there. Yeah, he's drinking coffee right here.
I agree. Iran is an important consideration, but this is an issue I had with your last podcast. Is you have these conflicts that have these fundamental drivers: Israel, Palestine, Russia, Ukraine, and then you say, well, what about Iran? Like, sure, Iran is relevant, but it's not the fundamental driver for this conflict. The West, London, has been attacking Russia for 250 years, since before since the foundation of since before the United States. The British have treated this war like the Second Crimean War, where Britain teamed up with the Ottomans to attack Russia in the late 18th century to retain the Islamic control of Istanbul, Constantinople, to keep Russia down and out and keep them from getting these warm water ports and expanding their influence, the Great Game. You talk about the strength of nations. What is strength? Where I live right now, they have their national motto is Suedinenie to pravi siłata, which means unity is strength. My country, where I come from, my country of origin, they have a different saying, which is diversity is our strength. So diversity is the strength of them, the regime in the West, and we can see how crumbly and destructive that ideology is. Russia have, I don't think the nation has been this united for in recent history. I can't think of a time since World War II, the Great War. War ties the state. War is hell. It's not conducive to prosperity. But if you want peace, you have to prepare for war, especially if you're being actively attacked and on such a vicious ideological and ancestral level, with such a level of malevolent hatred of the neocons, of Hillary Clinton, of Victoria Nuland. So
Madeleine
Russia,
Albright.
Albright, all these names, absolutely. And just a final thing, we're talking about. Again, we're talking about economics, and there's this fact and this factor. We have to look at those fundamentals. And then Juan talks about liquidating the gold reserves of Russia. Russia aren't funding this war through deficit spending like we're doing in the West. We have sabotage. We are selling off. We are at the expense of the economies of the West and Europe, especially. We have been funding this war. Russia aren't funding this war through deficit spending. They're selling oil. And other things, but predominantly through the oil revenue, they're funding this war, and I don't believe they've been this strong since.
Yeah, no, that
70s,
what I
80s.
what I wanted to point down there is the fact that Russia is not losing time here, is not losing money, it's not, yeah, they're losing man, but when it
not
comes
bleeding.
to war, yeah, when it comes to war, losing men, losing army, losing equipment is just a number. As long as you're making an advantage, we have to look at it from the point of these people. Yes, they could be thinking about, yeah, this may create some discontent around my people, but how is this content handled in Russia?
How?
This thing is not just a number, right? If there wasn't sufficient justification for this, these are tens of thousands of people dying, hundreds of thousands of families being affected. And if you speak to Russians, they don't hate Ukrainians. They hate what Washington are using the Ukrainians for. These are all Slavic people. They're fraternal nations. They were part of the same country only 30 years ago. They don't want to kill these people, and that's been shown through the conduct of the Russian state.
But that's where I point out the power of the Russian state as a whole, the power that they have over their people. Even if the people in Russia are mad, whatever they want, they have Vladimir Putin above them. It's really hard.
But he's not invaluable, and if tens of thousands of people are dying for an unjust cause, there would be serious problems in Russia. But the Russian people are united.
After you finish, I want to ask something. Please go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
this
that's
is
it to me. That I have
would
the
imagine
quality. Continue.
Yes.
You ask.
But I would imagine that if the answer, the alternative to bringing in Russian men hurt and sometimes dead, the alternative to that would be nuclear extermination, the answer to continue the war is simple. Because if you, as you mentioned, the Russians understand that this is an existential threat. This is not propaganda from Putin, although it could be. But I understand that the levels of popularity of Vladimir Putin are rather high. Beyond all the scams and all the lies that he could tell not. But the thing is that this situation is an all-in poker. Like the poker game, this is an all-in for the Russians. They have no choice but to fight. So in essence, everyone is in it, and no matter how they do, I mean, no matter how much of how do you call it, of discontent it is, the effort will be the same. It's like, okay, this is you remember this when Winston Churchill in 1939, the declaration of war against Germany, says we'll fight them in the beaches, we'll fight them in the land. It's like there is the possibility that our destiny lies in the death of the Germans, but at least we'll die fighting. That was the essence of the speech of Winston Churchill that eventually led into war and brought England together to fight the war. Is this situation similar in Russia?
I think it's a stronger casus belli for the Russian nation than England had for World War II, especially World
Just
War One.
more to my favor. I mean, they are. I mean, they don't care who lose. I mean, they don't care because they know they could be next.
Well, this they do care. Like one thing that is very, if you understand, like you talk about the Russian nation, that you have to learn and look at the Russian duch, the Russian spirit, the Russian soul, or maybe
That's
dush,
what I.
similar words. Every year, May the 6th, they have victory parade. Every year they are celebrating and honoring those that died in the Great War, where the official statistics say 27 million died, with estimates up to 40 million died. Entire villages were wiped out, entire families gone. These people understand sacrifice. And they fought the Cold War, and they got pillaged by the 90s, just devastated by the 90s. And when they came out of this, and with the rise of Putin, they tried to work with the West. Putin was, you look at his coverage in the early noughties, they said, this man, he's very pro-Western, but the West has continuously attacked Russia because they want to plunder its
That's
resources.
true.
And
Let's-
So true.
See, I want to go a little bit deeper than just the geopolitics, because I understand that just like this German general Clausewitz, Karl von Clausewitz said that war is a continuation of politics, but I believe
By
there
other
is
means,
something
yes.
deeper than the politics here, because at the long age, sane people just want to make money, and if they go to war, they go to war for money, and in fact that would be the sanest policy. But what you're telling me is there is something deeper running through the psyche of the players. They hate Russia. What do they hate of Russia?
It's an
George.
What is
ancestral
it?
hatred. It's an
Yeah.
ancestral hatred, and it's born out of the Frankfurt School. Now, I'm not the expert on the Frankfurt School. I have a Hungarian colleague who gave me the most incredible lecture on it, and the history of Hillary Clinton, the history of her teachers, her professors, the people in the State Department, all their connections to Ukraine. There's a lot of Ashkenazi Jews out there, and they've had problems with pogroms under the Soviet Union, and just persecutions and anti-Muscovite. It's in their genes, and it's this ancestral hatred. You're right. It's deeper than politics, which is why Russians understand now. And at the start of the war, they weren't exactly clear, but certainly after a year through, about 15 months through, specifically when Putin felt justified in the first partial mobilization, which is the only one so far, the Russians got it by that point. If no one wants to expand on that, I just wanted to go back, Mario, to a point you talked about.
Well, I would like to ask a question. Like, I wrote an article, and I'm an energy guy. I've worked in the oil and energy sector for over a decade. And the thing that I've researched and understand is that in Eastern Donbass and the Sea of Azov, there is a lot of oil and gas. And if you remember, it was in the news. It was kind of covered because it was geopolitical and Trump issue stuff. Nancy Pelosi, Mitt Romney, Biden, and the big thing was Biden. That was the big one. They have boards on a Georgian Navy company, and these board seats were put there during the 2014 uprising, and it was just set up to bring in U.S. Exxon and Mobil and other energy companies to build platforms and start pumping the oil in Eastern Donbass and the Azov Sea. I believe that one of the not the main reasons, but one of the reasons why Putin decided to liberate the Eastern Donbass and Crimea. Well, Crimea basically was because of the military base. That's the reason that was, it's historically part of Russia, and there's been a naval base there even during the Ukrainian years and post-Soviet Union. But Donbass specifically was because of the energy resources that were located there. and they didn't want the United States to have the access to that, Ukraine or EU, because it interfered with Russia's ability to, with oil and future ventures.
It's not strictly, it's not true actually. It's not
Okay.
incorrect, but it's not true. There is significant oil resources, not just and coal and other resources. As I said, about $10 trillion of primary resources have been annexed, which is 10 of 70 billion. It's quite a lot of the Russian wealth. They've gained a lot more a lot more natural wealth through the annexation of these territories than they've lost in fighting this war. But if this war is being fought over these strategic resources such as oil and gas, then it would not explain the historical actions of Russia. In 2014, there was a war that there could have been a war with between Russia and Ukraine right then. They seized Crimea, and then you had this one KGB officer who Strelkov, I believe, who left his post in Crimea, went to the cities in Donbass, who rejected the Euromaidan coup, the newly elected, a newly installed, the overthrow, these Western governments, Poroshenko. They rejected this. They said, no, we reject this. They rebelled against the state of Ukraine. Russia could have gone in 2014, they didn't. They could have gone in 2015, they didn't. They signed the Minsk Accords 1, the Minsk Accords 2. What they said is consistently, we don't, these regions, the Donbass region, said then, Russia, come in. Strelkov, actually, he was surrounded. He took a city with 50 men, got up to about 1,000 men. They were fighting. They were holding it for as long as they could. They were expecting Russia to come in. Russia never came in. They had to fall back. This is one of the it wasn't I can't remember the name of the city, but it's an important city. Like, why did Russia not come in? Russia said, we respect the territorial integrity of Ukraine. These are Ukrainian regions, and we do not wish to accept them in. They signed the Minsk Accords and the Minsk II Accords to have a just, lasting peace, which no one on the other side of the conflict had any intention of fulfilling. Even the start of this war, which again, the start of this war, you can argue, is 2008, 2014, but at the start of the special military operation 2022 was preceded by 3 months. Russia presented 2 security frameworks to the Europeans and the Americans, which were rejected out of hand. And actually, within the first month of the war, by the beginning of April, there was a peace deal signed by Russia and the Ukrainian delegation, which was torpedoed by the British. And in this peace deal, they did not ask for more lands. They said, how they justified the war was legally speaking, was that the Donbass republics, Donetsk and Lugansk, each declared their own independence. The Russian Federation then recognized the independence of these nations. They then entered into a collective treaty of mutual defense, and then Russia invoked Article 51 of the United Nations, the right to preemptive self-defense, and this was how the war started. Russia said, in this signed deal, we just want these two. Since 2014, they've been saying, we don't want these two oblasts. They are part of Ukraine. All we want is for you to stop killing Russians, stop persecuting the Russians. 2014, thousands of Russians have died. There's been militia fighting here since 2014. Thousands of Russians have died before the special military operation. Never did Russia say, we want these territories. Even the peace deal, it said, we want Crimea's ours. The 2 Donbass republics are ours, and NATO will never be in Ukraine. If you have that, we've got a peace deal, which Boris Johnson turned up unannounced in Kiev, said, you cannot do this, we'll give you everything, we can fight them, we can do it, go, go, go. So if you take all of that history and just the actions and the intentions of the Russian state, you can see that the primary motivation has not been territorial acquisition and oil and gas and resources. Those are nice bonuses, those are considerations, great, but those are not the fundamental reasons for it. Russia at every point has said, we want peace, peace deal, signed a peace deal. The peace deal was signed by the first week of April 2022. The West came in, Boris Johnson came in, the British particularly, but again, I'll find that article. It's the four of these European capitals in Washington, London, Paris, and Berlin. They said, you can't do this, fight the Russians. So yeah, Russia's gained a lot materially, but it is not a driving factor behind this conflict, and it's not one of those fundamentals.
I get a question to you all now. What does the first, why the West is so adamant in destroying Russia, in humiliating Russia, and even annihilate the Russians? Why so adamant, and what for? What do they plan to gain? I think is not just the money. The money is an excuse post hoc. But it's like, I want to destroy you, and after I destroy you, I'll I'll sack you. But it was never my intention to sack you in the first place. I'll sack you if there's anything left to sack. But if there isn't anything, I wouldn't care either. I just want to destroy you. Is that the feeling, the sentiment that the West has on Russia? Is that it? Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is Russia,
why the
like, you
hate? Why
understand,
the
like
vitriol?
like I said, Russia has been a major ally to the United States and Great Britain in both world wars, and you know, there's been a lot of trade throughout. Like I said, the historically grains and other types of trade. I mean, NASA couldn't launch space rockets into the atmosphere before Elon Musk without engines that were made in Russia. So, I mean, there's been a lot. Russia has been a great contributor to Western civilization and a lot of technology as well.
Literature.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, literally, the platform we're on right now, would not be possible without the help of Russians, Russian aeronautics. I mean, I mean, same with Germany. It wouldn't be, we wouldn't land on the moon without German scientists. So, it is what it is.
So why do they? I mean, where does the hatred come from? Is it because they see so? This
I
I'm
mean,
just spitballing
I
here,
could
and
add
I could be
something
wrong.
to that. There's this book. It's called Prisoners of Geography. Was
Okay.
wrote by Dean Marshall, if I'm not wrong. Is Dean Marshall? Yeah, Dean Marshall, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So he published this book. He has 10 maps. It's a fantastic book. It starts with one country. Imagine Russia. Why? Because Russia, it's I always like to talk about the geographical part. And in the book, I'm just going to one point. He goes to the division part from Europe to the European part of Russia to the Asian part of Russia. And he asks his guide, how do you feel? You feel European? You're Asian. And the guy is like, Niet, I'm Russian. That's it. The Russians, as I mentioned, they have traditional soul, a traditional way of understanding themselves. They are not properly Chinese people. Just to go straight to the terms, they're not properly the German guy. You know what I mean? They have their unique way. And there's another topic in geography that was taught to me. I don't know if anyone has tried. When you grab a map, you turn it around. Put yourself in the position where it's Russia. It's like Russia is trapped. It's like everything is surrounding Russia. There's this country here, the Netherlands. There's all these countries that they are not friendly with Russia. They're part of NATO, right? You have all these countries, they are not friends with Russia. They don't want to be friends with Russia. And you have here Ukraine. You have here some countries that they are not friends with your enemy, but they are not friends. They are not your friends too. I always like to talk about the geographical part of it because if you see Russia from that standpoint, you see how Russia wants to go out, how it has lost during the last 350 years almost a big chunk of its territory, and with that, influence over the European zone and over the decisions that are made there too. So it's not like when you see hatred, this hatred is being pushed. I always like to drive it to the political side of it. This hatred is always pushed by intentions, by interests that they don't have to be hatred. They don't have to be emotions per se. I don't believe that the people that rule wars or that move generals, they have any feelings towards anything concrete, unless it's Adolf Hitler or someone that it's really showing it in a radical, extreme way. The other ones are politics. The other ones are trying to move the chess game as best as they can and try to get out as much as they can out of it. So when I see all this hatred going around of Russia, I just see uh, the benefit that you can get out of it, rather than um, an ulterior motive for hating Russia, for just utterly hating Russia because they have this culture, because they have these, because they have the national position, because they are different, because they are a threat to us, because if they can't become an economical power, a true economical power, an unleashed economical power with all their territory, with all their proper connection that they could have. Yes, that's one part of it, but the ulterior hatred is the part when you can first you can blame everything to Russia. You can for a second of it, you can have this enemy, this perpetual enemy for the last 30 years at least. You have this perpetual enemy where you can blame everything to it. In politics, there's something called the definition of the political in the politics. There's politics and there's the political thing. What is the political thing then? There's one guy I like to defend. He was a Nazi, Carl Schmitt. Carl Schmitt defends the political thing in two sides: the enemy and the friend. What is the friend and the enemy? My friend is not my neighbor, the one that I like, or my friend. No, 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 no. My enemy is neither the neighbor that I don't like, the one that puts his music top volume and you can hear it 11 p.m. No, nothing. That's that's one thing. The enemy is the enemy of the state. I'll give you an example. Immigrants, Jews, Russians, or Russia, Putin, uh, Palestinians. This myth that because it's a myth, even Smith said it's a myth that the state needs to create in order to persist, in order to continue its monopoly and to continue a narrative in which it controls. You can see it everywhere, specifically with Hitler. This is curious. Carl Schmitt was part of the National Socialist Party, the first one, 1918. He met Hitler and he stayed with the party till 1938, till he was declared a traitor because he was not going to be part of the war that was going to happen. And to Carl Schmitt, war is basically the nature of the state. It's a pure representation of it. If it is necessary or not, it will depend on the narrative that you're using on the criteria of friend and enemy. And the criteria to defend the political thing, going to that thing, is the friend or the enemy you create. In this sense, when you're a part of this game of politics, you always need to create this myth. And Russia seems to be a really cheap way to create this myth. It's something that you always can rely to. You can throw everything to it. during the Cold War, during the Revolution, before the Revolution, and well, now it's America because we have this international group of states. But during the 1800s in Europe, countries like Germany, they politicians inside the state could blame problems on Russia and start wars or or justify invasions just for the sake of it, because there's that myth: get the enemy. The first one to practice it perfectly. It was Hitler. We have the Jews. We have the enemy. What did he do? Destroy it. When you propose that, gain votes or you gain motivation from the people that you're trying to to manipulate or to control. So the ulterior hate and the hatred towards Russia, I see it just as something that it is circumstantial. It just helps for them to control more in a propaganda way. Out of that, I really can't say anything more. It's just because I see it from the political standpoint. If there's anything else, I really can't see it.
Wow, that was intense. This is a perfect opportunity to call for a 5 minute break because my head just got spinning afterwards what you said. This is what I'll do. I invite my co to take a 5 minute break. We'll go back. We'll be back and we'll analyze further the situation in the Europe Russian conflict that leads to just more than geopolitical interests. Thank you so much. Please stay online. Remember, in the meantime, like, subscribe, and tell your friends that first we are alive, and then we are live, and that we want to keep growing. So thank you all, and we'll just take a coffee break, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Shipping.
Thank you for being with us, and thank you for giving us the time to take a break and catch your breath. It seems now that on a different level, it seems that Europe seems to be planning a sort of a social credit score, in the sense that if you're a good European, if you behave well, you get more benefits, and if you seem to be a little troublesome and some little bit like naughty, thinking too much about against the government, you may be banned of some activities, including jail time. Much to what is happening now in communist China. Josh, it seems that you have some information about that.
Yeah, I mean, in the United States we have something called a FICO score, and it was invented in order to calibrate, or at least to qualify, people that were borrowing money from banks or lenders. So it would go over, basically their credit worthiness. It has evolved into complete backgrounds of the person. So like their income, where they work, um, what's their debt to income ratio, or how much are they borrowing versus what they're paying. And now they're starting to use social media, which is not part of the FICO, but they're using it nonetheless. And I did see a video today that posted by the Nomad Capitalist, and he was talking about banks that were using social media in order to basically close your bank account. So we're seeing the FICO evolve into an actual like almost like a Chinese credit score, where it's like if your social presence is not on par with the government, or the social agenda, they could just basically not lend you credit, and close your bank
In,
account.
in order to be clear, is this the best explanation of the government getting in our bed with our wives. In the
Technically,
sense
yeah.
that
I mean, basically now yeah, go ahead.
The invasion of privacy. I mean, this is something that even I'm in Argentina, and we may have the benefit of being a backward country because we don't have these technological advances that can regulate our daily lives. I find it unfathomable in the sense that the government is having such a level of interdiction in our daily lives that can ordinate them to make us barely indented servitude. I mean, what you're talking about is indented servitude. I mean, they can curtail our freedoms to a point where we become serfs. Would that be the case?
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is,
I,
DT.
I won't add any further. Like you said it. That's the plan. I won't say it is like that's the plan. That's what they want. Look, they already have. This is not the first time we have something like these credit scores. They are not properly credit scores. They are social scores bounded to credit. Look, in Russia, 1922, if I'm not wrong, was the year that the central bank of the USSR was founded. It was the only bank in the in the Union of Republics. It was the only bank. It had its recursals, right? It had its offices where you could do deposits, exchange, and whatnot. But the thing is this: I sent, and I want to bring here the word CBDC, or the acronym CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currencies. That has existed before. And a central bank digital currency is an unified ledger. Imagine a unified ledger where all transactions, all deposits, and all the financial and monetary economical system, it's bounded to one ledger. That means that the owner of this ledger has visibility to everything going on there. That was the central bank of the USSR. What do you think they bounded with the credit score, for example? Or letting you deposit, move money, or get it out? Your behavior in terms of the of the political agenda. And we are talking
Follow
about
the
the
money.
USSR. This means complying to the root to anything that at that year 2022, 2023, if I'm not wrong, it's 2022. Maybe I'm far in
90.
a year, or am I exactly in the year? I'm not really sure. But it's Lenin era. So we're talking about how if you don't do what
1920.
Lenin says, Adam, maybe you're talking and you are confirming the information I'm giving. It's 1922.
1922. Yeah. Gosbank.
Yeah, Lenin. If Lenin said this, or for example, if you are selling cupcakes, or selling more cupcakes than approved, or you're in a crane, I don't know, and you are not complying according to the policies, well, your account gets blocked. Fact, all your money gets seized. Why not? You want a credit? Well, fuck you. We won't give you nothing because you don't comply with our agenda. That's basically the control they had. And if you look in Wikipedia, I'm sure that you can read that the central bank of of the USSR was a tool that the party had to control the population in terms of how they behave and how they followed, how they complied with the state. That's the tool. And a CBDC, a unified ledger, or a system of credit scores that are bounded to your behavior in terms of political agenda, that has already existed. And that was the communist experiment that we had in Russia for 100. Talking about Russia, right? That we had for not, about 100 years. And just to tell you, the central bank of Russia lasted till the last day of Russia, 1990s. Yes, it didn't. Can you?
1991. Yeah, 91. Yeah, you're
90,
sorry, you're right. I read
yeah, no,
89.
yeah. My bad.
No,
It
no,
lasted
you're
to the
right.
very
Yeah.
last day. Russia lasted. So they control the people. till the very last moment. It didn't matter if it was a Stalin or if it was the Perestroika. It didn't matter. They had final control in every single way people behave. Because at the end of the day, banking and the financial system, they define everything. Money moves the world, and if there's no money, if there's no these market institutions that they are not working freely properly, the problems that we can have are amazingly big. And above the problems, it's the control that these people have over our us and over how we behave, till the point that people will act against their own people just to comply to the agenda. Why? Because your life is bounded to it. Your bank is bounded to it. Till the point you can find betrayers in your betrayals. People, your own family could be, if in the future you say an homophobic message, or you send an homophobic, or your opinion with your family, and you say something that it's polemical,
Unauthorized, unsanctioned.
unauthorized, and your family, just to boost up their credit score, just to get um a loan for a cheaper rate, they can send you to jail. And yes, it's 1984 style stuff, but this has already worked. The reason why George Orwell wrote this novel was because that thing was working. It was not only fiction, because it was working. And he was saying these type of models could be applied by these other governments, because at the end of the day, the institutional foundation and principles of communist Russia are here too. You just need to maximize them. You just need to create a narrative. As I mentioned before, you just need to create the enemy
How
and try to
how is
destroy
not the American people up in arms?
it. Good question. Adam, what do you think?
Can you repeat the question? The first half.
How is not the people, the American people, holders of the biggest amount of the largest quantity of guns of firearms of home firearms in their homes, are not revolting against this? Why they are
Because they're
complying like
comfortable.
sheep?
They're
They're
comfortable right
comfortable.
now. They've got food in their refrigerator. They've got money coming in.
Mm-hmm.
There's gimmicks. There's subsidization. I mean, the U.S. government subsidizes everything. They have access to healthcare. They have access to education. They're fine right now. It's when the
Oh,
Your camera had just
if I
froze,
can add
Josh.
on to what
You-
Josh was saying,
Juan, please go ahead.
so
Juan, please go ahead.
no, it's punished. Oh crap, I gotta fix
Oh,
it.
punish, please.
Yeah, no problem. So, to add on to what Josh is saying, because this is something we've all talked about previously on the show quite a few times, as a matter of fact, um, is the reason Americans have really no will to do anything, let alone any type of physical and violent revolt, is like Josh was saying, is they're very comfortable, but they're not comfortable because they're actually living well. They're comfortable because they have just a few kind of luxurious commodities that will allow them to kind of live with it with the veil over their eyes. As you know, we've talked before, Netflix, they have their streaming services, they have their car, they have their junk food. It's still relatively
Circle
cheap.
bread.
Yep. Americans really don't mind living in mud. If you look at any statistics,
Don't
Ri-
mention
Amer-
Adderall and drugs.
Americans really don't actually. They're not. What's the average salary in the United States? $40,000 to $50,000, and I think a third of Americans don't make more than about 35K a year. So Americans don't actually even make that much money. Most Americans are nowhere near the low six figures. So they're fine living with these cheap luxuries that will keep them distracted. And also another thing, we talked about this at the end of one of our podcasts recently, Mario, was the being still. Most Americans have really
Be
no
still.
they never take a second off of their week. If they're not working 6 days a week, they're partying or having some type of external artificial
Activity, yes.
relief. Yeah, they're either drinking, smoking, or both, partying, having sex with random people, things like
I
this.
understand. I understand that the drug consumption in the United States is the largest in the world.
Absolutely, and it's
The
in
main.
all economic levels, poor and rich.
Yes,
Wow.
that's. I was looking forward for some charts that I had here. In fact, I shared a news article the other day. It was talking about. I'm trying to find it out right now, but it was talking about the average income of the American, and I'm trying as fast as I can to look forward for it. But it was something about that the average income of the American, if I'm not wrong, is 43% of the American has in their bank account, in their deposits, in their balance, they have less than 100K.
Yep.
Probably something around, if I'm not wrong, it's 40,
But
43.
Most Americans don't have more than
50%.
$20,000 in their bank account at all times.
Yeah,
A lot of them
that's a fact.
month,
That's a
even
fact.
$1,000.
That's only a fact.
Adam, do you want to say something?
Yeah, just even $1,000 for some people.
Yeah.
There's a large section of America that's living check to check to check. That one unexpected expense can absolutely devastate them
Yeah.
financially.
I found
Pick up that
the
Band-Aid.
headline I was trying to look forward. It is 61% of Americans say they are living paycheck to paycheck, even as inflation cools. So, this is a CNBC. CNBC, look at that. CNBC type of headline. So we have
Inflation
broadly
isn't
three.
cooling. The rate of inflation.
I
isn't
mean,
cooling.
according to headlines, because again, this is CNBC. They are
This
not
is
going to
legacy
tell
media.
you.
This is
Yeah, this is mainstream media, but still, this is mainstream media. They are still going to tell, because we have the mainstream narrative, right? Soft landing, no recession. God damn it, no landing. We're gonna have a resilient economy forever. The real estate market is going to boom forever. The AI bubble is going to never burst, and
Yep.
we're gonna have a stock market that's gonna make money and more money and more money and more money till infinity. Well, we read stuff like this one. What consumers earning less than 50,000 annually, and 65% of those earning between $50,000 and 100,000 were living paycheck to paycheck in
Yep.
June. That means, I mean, imagine that you have a mortgage of
Yeah.
a house, 600,000. You're paying interest. What is the interest rate of a mortgage right now? Imagine that is not a fixed rate. It's variable rate. So it's probably 8% right now. And you started with what? 2%?
I think
Right
it's
now you're
7%
paying
right now.
also
I believe it's 7% right now, but I could be wrong.
That's inflation.
No.
No.
The
The
mortgage
mortgage
rates.
rate, I believe, is 7% right now.
Well, mortgage rate.
Yeah. And above that, here October, you have they have to start to pay the student loans,
It is 7%.
the student loans thing, and that's another $500-$600 you have to pay. And again, we're talking about these yearly, 100,000 dollars yearly, 50 to 100 yearly, and that's 65% of consumers. So what is going on in America? That's one of the
Nobody can
things.
pay
Yes,
that.
they are comfortable, but they are by now, because most of Americans have been living in this bubble since 2008 till 2019, where everyone thinks that everything is free. We've been living with interest rates near to zero for a long time, and there's academics out there, for example, Dr. Lacey Hunt, that have models that
Her
try
name is
to.
Lazy, as
Lacey
in
Hunt,
sloth.
yes sir.
Lizzie?
Lazy Hunt. But imagine this
Okay.
dude. He makes charts. For example, he has an interest rate called real interest rate. The real interest rate that he has, it's below zero. It's below
Bullshit. No,
zero
you're bullshitting
interest
me.
rates.
You're bullshitting. It cannot be.
What?
It cannot be.
Yeah, no,
That
and
they,
it can
that
be. Look,
Hang
all,
on,
all of this consumption that the
real
United States
real
had
interest
for the
rates
last
have
10
been
years.
negative for
Liberty wants to say something.
real interest rates are negative and have been negative for like a decade.
Yeah, they have.
They are
For
paying
like
you to get their money.
by
They are
now.
paying you to give you money.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for banks, it has been free to lend. For banks, for you and I, it has been almost free to lend, almost free to get loans. But continue, Adam. You can go forward on this.
So a real interest rate is so it violates the fundamental law of economics, which is positive time value, which is that a dollar today should be worth more than a dollar tomorrow. If you have a negative real interest rate, it means that if I put my money in the bank and I save it up and I'm earning interest, that I'm losing money, right? And that shouldn't be the case. But what happens is if you have the if you have a rate of inflation which is higher than the rate of interest, then you have negative rates of real interest, not nominal. So if the inflation rate is 3% or 2% target, and the inflation rate and the interest rate is 1%, if it's anything less, then you have a negative rate of real interest. There were some interesting things that the Bank of England did with imposing like a negative rate of interest in around 2015. But there's we're not even we can talk about complex financial economics and the banking system and the rates of interest with them, but that's a whole discussion. There's another whole discussion, which is when you talk about just for consumers that yes, if you hold $1 in your account and you're earning interest, you are losing money because of inflation is much higher than the official figures, for one. Inflation is a measure of or it's the process of inflating the money supply, which means that your money is worth less. The purchasing power is being eroded through the minting of new currencies. A dollar,
we do have dollars in Argentina. We understand the dollar in Argentina. We have 140%, 147% inflation. So this is my question to you all. How, I mean, to the people living in the United States, and I understand, Juan, you live in Colombia.
Yes.
How is the inflation? How is the declining purchasing value of the dollar affecting the United States citizen in his own soil? Josh, I think you have no sound, Josh.
Yeah, Josh, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm here, brother. I'm having some connective issues with my internet, but yeah, as far as and Florida's generally like the Florida and California and as well as New York are the large real estate markets in the country. I'm like I told you guys, I mentioned in the podcast, I mentioned in the Telegram channel as well, that I'm starting to see massive homes go for sale into the market. I'm not seeing them catch up on the on like Zillow and the different platforms, the housing platform sites. And no one's mentioning it. The realtors aren't mentioning it. No one's mentioning it because it's spooked. Because they said that when these houses go on the market, that's when you're gonna start seeing the bubble pop.
Exactly.
And I've seen a lot.
Okay, Josh seems to be having connectivity, but I think the
well,
idea
I can continue on his point because I know where he's going. I know where he's going. I know where he's going in that point. Look, when you have housing is valued to the margin. What that means is that the last good that has been sold, imagine at 10, that defines the price of the rest of the assets or the products on the market. That's housing, basically.
Okay.
When you have all this demand and when you have all these houses that are ready to be sold and there's no offer for them, of course, prices drop, and that's the moment when you see this bubble popping. Inflation is not going to catch up with it to the point of this. Consumers are losing their savings. They are depleting their savings right now. You can see credit cards balances. They are over $1 trillion in credit card balance for overall in the United States. And you can mix it up with another one. Overall deposits in the United States, they are being depleted completely. And they go like this. Deposits is this one. Well, they go like this. And credit cards is this one. Well, they go like this. Consumers have been depending on their credit cards, on emptying out their deposits and going out for cheap loans. For example, they are web pages or cheap platforms where you can go and get cheap loans for 60 days, 30 days. Interest rate, yeah, I don't remember how they manage the interest rate, but I understand that it's something quite high, something not 5% or 6, it could be something like 10, 15, something like if you were using a credit card, but you are getting a loan directly, not like a credit card, because the credit card, you know, we are also having a search on credit card delinquencies. So what I'm talking about, balances, deposits, houses we have all these houses that haven't been sold for a minute now. They are ready to be sent to the market. They are going to be part of this huge stock of housing that there is. This low amount of offer. We have to talk about the ban of what is the name of this app that people use to rent? I just forgot. I talk about this every time on
Airbnb?
television, but I just what?
Venmo,
What is that?
Cash App.
Airbnb?
Airbnb. Airbnb is being banned in multiple parts of the United States, specifically Manhattan, New York. I have
This is true.
a news article I haven't shared. There are more
Why?
than
And their earnings are
40,000
down
apartments and
23%.
houses. Yes, in terms of percentage, that's 23%. But just in the area of Manhattan, there's 40,000 houses in Airbnb. Gets banned, Airbnb gets banned, and we have 40,000 properties
And just
ready
think,
to. Yes.
just one. Let me add too. Just think how many people are relying on that income as secondary income to help live
As a
and
hustle,
adjust
yes.
to the inflation. Yes. When that's gone,
That's when you
what do you think's
ask
gonna
yourself,
happen to the
what is
consumer?
Jerome Powell talking about? What are all these narratives of soft landing, of resilient, sound economy? You can't just rely on labor numbers. And in fact, you can check on the news. Every month they are revising labor numbers. One month, like the numbers that we got 1 month ago of labor numbers right now are being changed. So last month we had call it 250,000 new workers in the market or new higher ups. Well, now the revised numbers could be of 200,000, 180. You know, so they post huge numbers in the present time just to create narrative and just to justify the Fed's hawkish movements. But to add above that, um, they don't. How do I say it? They don't. They don't put all the data that is correct. So
They're
when people read
withholding.
all these headlines, they say, "Oh yeah, we have a sound and resilient economy. My neighbor has 3 jobs." Having 3 jobs that is not the sign of a resilient economy. It means that people, for example, people that are in their 60s, they have to go out of their retirement and go back to the labor force. And that's not a sign of a sound economy. Neither is a sign of a sound economy, a resilient economy, for a young guy or a 40-year guy, 30-year guy to be having 3 jobs in a hustle in order to subsist. And above that, to have card loan to buy groceries and stuff like that, which it's not the proper use for credit cards. Credit cards should, like the American Express in the 1980s, was meant to be used like for restaurants or
It's a
stuff
charge
like that.
card. It's like a
Exactly.
debit card back in the day. That's how it was invented. But now it's being used as a cash haven card in order to offset your cost of living, and people just rack it up and pay the minimum. And that's what creates the bubble. This is the bubble.
This is the bubble. Yes, sir.
So, what do you when do you
No,
predict?
Adam, come on. If you want to add something, please, because I want to
Yeah,
hear you out, because you have some insights on this data that.
I don't agree that this is the bubble, and I don't think that when we talk about, well, first of all, when we talk about the real interest rates as opposed to nominal, there's a fundamental question, which is, well, are these phenomena systemic or systematic? Are they are they a result of the system, or are they by design? And I've spoken with world leaders, heads of states, and they've outside of the West, and they've said it's by design. It is a system of self-destruction. What is the system? The system is the bubble, and the system is the fiat, the debt-based government fiat. So when we talk about the housing bubble, or any other crises such as credit card debt, we must recognize these as a symptom of a wider system meltdown or collapse, not as not the problem itself, not the bubble itself. There are micro bubbles. It's like a pot of boiling water. A housing bubble, one. A credit card crisis, two. But it's all bubbling. What we're seeing, we are witnessing the failure of fiat. This is a multi-decade transformation project. It's not going to happen overnight, but it is the failure of fiat monetary system, transition back to a form of hard currencies.
A
Personally,
sound
I believe it's
economy.
going to be a sound economics, hard economics, both gold and silver, but also with the rise of with objective digital scarcity, which has proven it can retain value and therefore has value in the long run. So we're witnessing the collapse of the global American empire, the end of
And it's
this
an experiment that has been around for 60 years, just to find out.
correct.
It's
That's fiat, correct? But and especially it's the end of this unipolar moment, which is of the neocons. With the fall of the Soviet Union, they said this is it. This is the unipolar moment, and the United States, the global American empire, has taken this and abused this power, this hegemony over the past 30 years, and it's all collapsing, and we're seeing that with Ukraine, with Israel Palestine, with the erosion of
brilliant.
Taiwanese independence, with Iran, with all of these, and all the crises of the U.S. empire, which has been ultimately destructive. And in its place, we're seeing the rise of multipolarity, which is exemplified by BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, where with Iran joining the fold, Saudi Arabia coming in, loads of these developing countries. The BRICS alone already is over half the world's population, and if you contrast that with G7, one is objectively going to, if you do any kind of forecasting, I cannot see how the G7 can retain its hegemony over the
Position.
BRICS. Correct.
And I wanted Adam to add these, because I knew I was forgetting something, and it's the basic foundations like of the Austrian economic theory in a radical way. The system that is going on right now, the Federal Reserve System, fiat monetary system, and others are systems that have never worked. Historically talking, there has never been an example of a fiat economy to work. Never. They all crumble apart. And this is one of those examples. We're just seeing it. And there's authors like Mike Maloney, Peter Schiff, Jim Rickards. Well, we can go further. Jesus Huerta de Soto, Samuel L. Konkin, Friedrich Hayek, Ludwig von Mises, that have been predicting for over a century the demise of these systems. For example, the first one that comes to my brain is Ludwig von Mises, 1913, if I'm not wrong. Theorizing of what could happen if a Federal Reserve gets to exist, if a central bank gets to exist. A depression.
What happened in Argentina? The inflation rate soared because politicians started inflating money on seniority by printing money and spending it on themselves.
1944, exactly. No, well, wait. The opening of the central bank of Argentina was 1933, if I'm not wrong. But the
Yes.
moment that everything crumbled apart, well, yes, was that moment. And then when Perón got to power, 1942, something like that, more money got
1943.
printed, and more and more and more.
In,
The
and
problem
eventually
here
10
is that
years,
we're not talking about Argentina. I wish that we were
we're talking
talking about
about
Argentina. We're talking about the United States of America. We're talking about a power around the world that if you go and price the world economy, it's going to be priced on
it's going to
$100
crumble.
trillion.
The whole economic system is going to collapse.
But think about it this way.
I wouldn't go far to that point.
Yeah.
You know why? Because
Think of-
there's something that Adam
sorry.
pointed out. It's multipolarity. There's
Okay.
multipolarity in the world.
Exactly.
So-
That's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say.
Then
So
Yeah, I was
Russia,
saying, like,
when
basically,
something falls, something rises. There's go on.
Nature
No,
of
Josh,
manufacturing.
you have to say
I just
something.
wanted to add
You have
something.
something
I just
really.
wanted to add
So,
something, Juan, and then you
Josh,
can
please
go
go
on.
ahead.
Hold
Go
on, wait,
ahead.
Mario, wait. Just let me add. The thing is in North America alone, think about Argentina. Think about Venezuela. Venezuela is one of the largest controller of oil in the world. I mean, they have huge amounts of oil, and they, think about Argentina with the amount of agriculture and, as you were saying, Mario, Argentina at one time was a very, very powerful economy, and a very modern society. Same could be said about Venezuela before, the communist takeover. You know what I mean? It is what it is. These countries are independent, they're sovereign in their own right, but when they start getting in these types of structures and policy changes and reforms and and all this extra government bureaucracy, it starts to boggle down free market economy. And you're starting to see that in Canada and the US and a lot of the Western countries. As they continue to grow, the central government continues to grow, more regulation, more policy changes. Then you have the cultural influence from the woke mentality or whatever mentality they bring in, if it's communism, socialism, whatever have you, that's starting to bog down the economy as well. So in a free, laissez-faire economy, you let things be, and you let the economy grow naturally in an organic way. But that's all I wanted to add. You guys can continue.
Oh, I mean, in a way, I like to think that Venezuela and Argentina are United States mirrors of the future.
I would go directly to Argentina. They are. I'm sure someone here shared a video of Peter Schiff talking about the United States becoming a Japanization, but to Argentina. And that's
Explain that.
I wouldn't go to Peter Schiff. There's multiple factors that point down towards that. First of all, the fact that the United States have been into these anti. There's multiple. I won't go to the definitions, but there's multiple definitions over the word deflation. So
Okay.
some people say that yes. Some people, as Adam is saying, some people say that the United States has been in this mood of an anti-deflationary economy. So they think that happens in Japan of them going to print into infinity just to not let the treasury market and whatnot. But that's not going to happen with the United States. It's going to happen in the same way of having a lost decade where you don't produce nothing, where that's called a depression. Let's call it an
Russia.
economical depression. That's
Somebody
also called an
said about
economical
that.
depression. It could be called a stagflation if you want it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the
You
part
know,
of the United States that it could also happen is that the United States has $100 trillion in the economy going around.
Yeah.
For it to come down back to the United States, that means one thing: that those dollars represent debt. Every dollar in circulation means debt. It's the equal of debt. So in order to clean up those $100 trillion of debt in circulation, that'll be bullish, if you want to call it in some way, for the dollar. That'll boost up the dollar in terms of they don't have $100 trillion going around in the economy. But the problem is that still the United States have too much money going around. So the future of the United States looks like Argentina more than Japan. And I would like Adam to go forward on this.
Too much currency, not too much money. Money is
Yeah,
too much,
too much
too
money.
much fiat.
Money is not the
Too
word.
much fiat.
Yes,
Too much fiat.
too much fiat. Too much fiat. Yes.
So, just on a definition, inflation does not mean rising prices. How can you
This is
inflate a
true.
price?
This is true. I agree
Inflation
with
No,
that.
it's
Yes.
the amount of
to-
money circulating
Correct. So it's
that
printing
lowers
money.
it depreciates its value.
Correct. So
The value of
inflation
the money
is
is
the
cheap.
inflation of the money supply through printing or
Exactly.
minting new mints, and that reduces the purchasing power of each individual denomination, and that and stagflation is when you have both inflation and a contraction of the economy. So one definition of inflation, which is beyond that definition, which is they say that it's specifically when the rate of inflation outstrips the growth in production. There's something known as the Fisher's equation, which is output times times the price level is equivalent to money times velocity. PY or PY is equivalent to MV. So if you have an increase in money supply and an increase in output, then you're not feeling the inflation because there's not less goods being chased after by more money. It's still inflation, but you don't feel it. Stagflation is when you have an increase in inflation and a decrease in output, which results in economic problems.
I want to say something that we want to overlap it with how we started at the beginning regarding the war on Russia. According to what you're telling me, Russia only needs to sit pretty and wait until the time clock, that the Damocles sword that the West has on itself because of its debt explodes, because the Russians have money and they don't spend what they don't have. So the West is so adamant in destroying Russia because Russia will end up owning them.
So, do you know how much the United States spends on its military per year? Without diving into like Pentagon
lot.
hidden funds, it's about $800 billion, 860. Who knows? How much does
A
the
lot.
United States government spend servicing
Well, that's
its
just
federal debt per year?
Adam. That's just what's on paper. That's not including the third
Unfunded
party.
debt obligations.
Yeah, unfunded
Yeah.
as well as like private contractors.
Just
It's
on
75% of the economy, pretty much.
Correct. On paper, though, they're spending, call it $900 billion on a military, and that spending is puffed up by the military-industrial complex, which is not necessarily something someone said in the previous program that it's a jobs program, maybe, but also it's a lobbying effort. The military-industrial complex. But the United States, whatever they're involved in this war, they're preparing for maybe another wars. Biden saying we can do all the wars. They're spending more money by a lot on these unfunded debt obligations and on their military. This is a national security concern. And yes, Russia and the rise of multipolarity, it's inevitable. It's moving forwards, and it is a good thing because again, we've seen the actions and outcomes of unipolarity and US hegemony, and it's not been good. So this is the end of Pax Americana. But importantly, yes, while Russia can just sit and wait because of these factors, it can only sit and wait because also it is winning the war decisively in terms of manpower, in terms
Excellent.
of
Yes.
land, in terms of resources. It's painful. It's a bloody fight. This is what I go back to. It's not. We can't just say this in the abstract. This is war. People are dying. It's very painful. But they're winning the war, and that combined with all these other factors means that yes, they're happy to. They're not going by a calendar. They're happy to just go and minimize losses, minimize destruction because they want peace and prosperity. The Chinese also, they want peace and prosperity. The United States don't want peace or prosperity. They want it's a governance of kleptocracy where they're plundering the the United States for its resources, transferring it to the politicians, away from the people. And then if you go and study, for example, the fall of Rome, we talk about bread and circuses, the people are distracted and they're not paying attention and they don't care about it. And if they do care, they're unable or unwilling to take action.
The West is run by psychopaths.
I would say everywhere. Show me a state that's not run by psychopaths.
Republic of Georgia.
Okay, I when as a European, when I talk about states, I think nation states. But you're right. There are the United States of America. There are individual states like Florida, like Georgia, that may have better self-governance because
When you
Speaking
Washington,
about nation states, like
the West Coast.
Republic of Georgia, the nation state south of Russia. It's a pretty transparent government. Since Saakashvili took over, there's a lot of reforms, and it's in the top 10 fastest growing economies in the world. Apparently,
I've heard that even in banking.
yeah, and
a
banking.
lot of problems in Georgia.
I just wanted to add something that Adam said. The psychology right now of Russia is something I mentioned before and before the break we had. Russia can't sit down and just wait because, as I mentioned, they have all these positions that they're playing, and one of their fronts is Ukraine. And as mentioned by Adam, they were winning that front. The only thing that they have to move now is their influence in the rest of the world so they can clean their image or the image they have because of the West propaganda making them look as a genocides and this and that. And what are they like? For example, RT, this propaganda news program that I guess everyone had in YouTube at one point and everyone watched, or that everyone had in their feed on YouTube. That's coming back soon, sooner or later. We're gonna see an RT logo on our YouTube Shorts soon. Why? Because Russia sooner or later is going to win also that economical war, that market war. Sooner or later, the industries and companies in the West are going to have to low down and say, "Man, look, governments from the West, we understand all your problems here and your blockades, but you have to start thinking again if this is effective for us." But because look, me as YouTube, I'm losing money, and here is this guy Russia, and he's not in your position. He's not losing money as you are. They are earning money, and he's willing to pay me. So I need you to turn down your blockades and all your restrictions on this country, so we can have a little bit of good business. And since all the governments in the West by now are all lobbied by all these companies that have the power to move policies in their favor, well, we're going to see forward how Russia, in his positioning around the globe, Latin America, and specifically Latin America, we're talking about a big population that in the near future, is going to have to move the United States. For example, the United States have been looking forward to put manufacture into Latin America. Russia and China are gaining territory here faster than the United States. And that's to blame to Biden economics. Of course, it is to blame to Biden economics. While Biden is throwing money to Ukraine and to Israel and not to Hawaii, he's also forgetting that he's losing territory in his backyard. And that's not a good sign.
It's not a good sign. I'd like to add, Gerald Salente said something very similar to this. He said that the Americans' business is war, the Chinese business is business, and you could say the same for Russia.
You can say that I think of all the Latin American nations, the only one left having United States as its main trade partner is only Colombia. All the others, including Argentina, happens to have China as the main.
But Argentina is coming next to partners again.
Yeah, because the GCC.
We're going to see a switch.
Argentina is
The
becoming
GCC.
ultra capitalist. So we're going to be wearing Uncle Sam's hat, I
Yeah,
believe.
exactly. The
This is gonna
GCC
be
in particular, China, like Saudi Arabia, their largest trading partner is China now. And I mean, China has completely moved into the Middle East. And like I said, you saw recently, like I said in my previous podcast, that China will be brought in to negotiate with the peace deals in the Middle East and Israel-Palestine conflict because of the amount of influence that they have in that area. They are just as relevant as the United States and Israel and the Arab League and the GCC. So because of the amount of trade that they're implementing in that region.
That's true.
In closing state, I believe we just arrived at our closing our closing time. In order not to tear I know not to tear the audience apart, to wear them out. Adam, you had some closing things to say about social credit. Please go ahead. This is your moment.
Sure. There's a quote by B.W. Powell. We become slaves the moment we hand the keys to the definition of reality entirely over to someone else, whether it be a business, an economic theory, a political party, the White House, Newsweek, or CNN. That's the quote, end quote. You need to be the one to take charge of your own life. You need to be able to elevate your freedom, empower your own liberty. There are these four rules of Graham combat. One, nobody's coming to save you. Two, everything is your responsibility. Three, save who needs to be saved. Four, kill who needs to be killed. And number five, always be working.
I think as a closing statement, that was just moving. If anybody can write it down in the comment section or to have it in the it would mean a lot to me. Juan, would you like to say something as a closing statement?
I would like to say just one thing. Long live freedom, long live capitalism, long live free market, and that's it.
Josh, any closing words for today?
No, I think it was like one of our best podcasts we've had as of yet. We're getting better every. Yeah, go ahead.
Every transmission every broadcast that we have, I feel more in a purpose to do so. There's like a mission. I'm proud. Punish Gusano, I want to thank you so much to ask as an operator and as a technical assistant. If you would like to say some words, please be welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for entrusting your show to me. I appreciate you guys. I had a fun time listening and interacting with you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Pons Luzano. This is a proud job, and we are happy to have you here. Today it's been a great week, and we look forward to have a next week to be even better. As always, I am the Liquid Monkey, your host, Mario, with Josh, Punish Gusano, Liberty Rising, and Juan. We wish you a very good night, a very good weekend. Good night, and all the best of success.
Also, like it,
please.
and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, and tell your friends about it. We cannot be without you. And if you please, just like Liberty Rising and Juan were so kind to join us, you're welcome to join us too. We're looking forward to having you, and let's
invite me.
this fun.
Take care, everybody.
Good night. Good luck.
Thank you.